I'm Matt Lighty. That's my name. Path of Exile is the game. This is the balance manifesto changes for the upcoming Expedition League, patch 3.15. There's a lot to read here, but honestly, a lot of it is fluff. Anything that was italicized was just said on the stream. You could skip it. So as predicted, when I said this will be 6,500 words, I knew it'd kind of be bullshit, and I was right. But I could summarize all this shit in about 6 to 8 minutes. I suggest you read it yourself if you care. If not, wait for patch notes. A lot of things are unanswered. Keep that in mind. So, without further ado, the first thing, the support gem reductions. Damage supports such as Control Destruction now do 25 to 45% less damage at level 20 than before. So a substantial nerf. Some damage supports have gained negative conditional modifiers. Examples of these are things like melee physical now has a less attack speed multiplier, and painfully, minion damage now comes with a negative 25% minion life modifier. Why did they decide to nerf minions? Couldn't tell you. Traps were not nerfed, so the trap gems were fine. Trapped wave and frequency abilities that have traps that have those things now scale off of throwing speed. So the incursion gloves like slave drivers are way better. Many gems were buffed at higher levels to set off the nerf to damage supports. So an example of that is ground slam. So like they basically tweaked the melee abilities, really just the melee abilities, to make it more palatable considering the changes. Other things like Seismicry had huge nerfs. They no longer scale, or no longer provide a more damage multiplier to exert attacks. So pretty big damage modifier nerf to Warcries, since they were just slam was too strong. Huge fucking buff to increase crit damage. Personally, I don't understand this, because essentially for those who were using things like Control Destruction on crit builds, this was pretty much like a one-to-one swap. Take out Control Destruction, put in crit damage, nothing really changes ultimately. So unsure why this received such a massive increase. Same thing with Crit Strikes, same thing with Nightblade. We'll see what the values are for the two in patch notes, but yeah, I don't understand. Archmage got deep dicked. It went from 108% of your mana cost as damage to 60%, so pretty big nerf across the board. Chain, GMP, Fork, they all got basically buffed because they weren't nerfed, and they all received better qualities that kind of work with what they are. So, you know, chaining range instead of just damage. So, you know, things that use change but necessarily weren't even like really attack projectiles or whatever. Basically just makes it so it's more quality of life for the clear speed. Also, most Awakened gems got pretty dicked. They're basically the equivalent amount of like 2020 old supports now. Flasks got fucked just across the board. Elemental Flasks got a little bit buffed, a little bit more res from those. Huge fucking essay. Again, all of this is just pretty much chaff from the fucking dive stream. Dying Sun got nerfed again. There's some flash duration on Tree to kind of counteract how a lot of these flasks got shit on to offset some of the nerfs. The big one is the Adrenaline Flask got nuked from outer space. It now gives 6 to 8% movement speed instead of 20 to 30. So Quicksilver Adrenalines probably won't be super great anymore. Iron Skin and Reflex one also got heavy gutted, about half the percentage it used to give. And at the high end, you'll now be getting like, well, you'll go from 30 to like 60 movement speed. Pretty much, I feel like Stampedes are really good now, so maybe consider using the Stampede boot. Player Ailment Mitigation. These were massive, more massive than I thought even. Elementalist lost ailment immunity on Tree. Inquisitor lost ailment immunity on Tree. Raider is now down to 50% ailment immunity. Rare Gear, so Shaper modifiers for ailment immunity, got hit in some way. And the Tree itself, so things like Crystal Skin, unknown. Unknown what that's like. We don't know yet, so we'll have to wait and see the exact amounts we're going to be seeing. And then some Pantheons got minor buffs to combat like Corrupting Blood and Curses. So you'll see some new Pantheons that might provide new things for some Curse and Corrupting Blood support. Poison! Gun to my head. If you said Poison was going to receive a 50% damage buff, wouldn't in a million years guess that. But here we are. Deals inherently 50% more damage. Assassin and Pathfinder have received minor nerfs to kind of compensate for the overall poison buff. Occultist, totally untouched. Poison also on every enemy was buffed, except for El Hazmin. So like the basic poison snakes, that's fine. But like the El Hazmin mobs and himself won't have a massive increase. Ailment Threshold, it's they basically made it so it's easier to apply ailments to enemies. The overall threshold was lowered, so you have an easier time applying a high version of Shock Chill. Trigger costs, we don't know the specifics of certain things, but most trigger costs now cost mana. Basically any ones that have like cast one in the title, except for cast on death. So cast when it was taken, cast when channeling, cast one on crit. Those all got mana cost multipliers of some sort for the things you're casting, which means Archmage can now apply to them, which is kind of cool. Mjolnir remains untouched, but there's no mention of other uniques, no mentions of like things like Cospreys, Maloney's, no mentions of Spellslinger. And yeah, so we'll have to wait till patch notes. Basically, the best movement skills in the game were pretty heavily nerfed, I would say. Second one was also nerfed, so pretty much Flame Dash is worse, Smoke Mine's worse. All of them are double worse because of Second Wind. Arcane Surge got better eventually, but worse in the beginning. Fortify nerfed across the board. They basically want it to be at most 40% less damage when hits on like the super high end. So pretty much nerf across the board. Damage over time multipliers hit on all clusters, all small passives, or small notables. The nodes have been replaced with shitty, like, increased damage ones. The only difference there is that on the actual notables themselves, the notables retain their multi, but everything else gone. Build modifiers no longer count as crafted mods. You can't remove them before unveiling them. You also can't do more than one on an item. Can't get multiple veiled mods, and the stat ones no longer stack with main stats. You can't have a ring that has like dex, and then also craft dex strength on it. So the other changes has some like shit just like tossed in here that's pretty brutal. Raider lost 50% onslaught effect, pretty massive. They also lost the movement speed on all the small nodes. So Raider got triple nerfed this league. I wasn't expecting a triple nerf, but we got a triple nerf. That's happening. So Raider, not so great. Elementalist, probably not so great either. Your opinions may vary. We knew a lot of nerfs were coming. Again, hold off until your final judgments, until patch notes. I would say it's looking quite grim for Raider overall, and Elementalist as well. But yeah, Scion seems fine. Assuming Scion is unnerfed, just food for thought, Scion can give you phasing, frenzy charge generation, and onslaught all permanently. Some would probably say it's better than Raider right now, so again, food for thought. Abyss Jewels no longer can roll Onslaught on kill, so you're gonna have to get Onslaught from Flask, which is not a big deal because you just roll Cinder Swallow and you're good to go. Hollow Palm lost a massive chunk of more attack speed, went from 60 to 40. Blade Blast had its area lowered and no longer unnerves on hit, but it had its area multiplier with Blade Vortex increased, but I'm not really sure why using Blade Vortex with it, so overall it just lost unnerve. All the unarmed things, Doriani's Fist, Rigwalds, Hollow Palm, Facebreakers, they've all been changed so they don't work with Explosive Concoction. If you had any plans built for that, out the fucking window. Buffs to underperforming skills, I could really say this was as expected. Majority of these buffs were like pretty minor, negligible, I would say, for the most part. The ones I would point out that do seem potentially good, really the only one that really Shock Nova was it. That's the only one that really showed to me that like it could be good. Aside from that, everything else is pretty minor. Nothing major at all. But yeah, that pretty much wraps up the Manifesto. Not much that we didn't expect here, but some of the buffs, nerfs I thought were really more severe. Feel really bad for anyone who don't want to play Raider, because again, I got triple nerfed. I'm not really sure what you'd want to do with that, but maybe just forget about Onslaught and just go back to the frenzy charges on that thing. Or just not play Raider at all and just play Pathfinder. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. And as always, I'm Matt Lighty, and have a good day. Bye-bye.